conditions. Super Bowl 52 is set. Chiefs and Philadelphia. We'll get into that today. Men's basketball tonight. Texas at home against Baylor after Baylor's winning streak reached 6 games after their win against Arkansas that was by no means easy and wasn't expected to be. Texas losing to the number 2 ranked team in the country this week, Tennessee, and former head coach Rick Barnes. A lot of things to get to there. Pac-12 meetings going on. Big 12 meetings, I think, start tomorrow. And let's start with Super Bowl 52, the Chiefs and the Eagles.
Yeah, it's I don't know if the Chiefs are one of the 3 best teams in the AFC, so it was always, to me, in my mind, going to be between Buffalo, Cincinnati, and KC. And Patrick Mahomes, at the end of the game, you give him enough time when he's healthy, and he can go 99 if he needs to. And when he only really had to go 35 or 30, and you gave him 15 free ones after he made an unbelievably gutsy play to get the first down when he did, just kind of shows you the absolute grit and toughness and greatness of Patrick Mahomes, and the way that you just don't want to give him any kind of an inch to win a game. And Cincinnati almost took it away and from them again, but it didn't. And then the Eagles have been the best team, really the most consistently good team in the league all year long. And a healthy Jalen Hurts is fantastic to watch. They've been very smart about the way they've built the offense to play completely to his strengths and move things around. As a matter of fact, we'll talk about the Eagles and their relation to Dak Prescott later on in the show in the top 5 today. But they have certainly built the offense to work for everything that they have. And Jalen Hurts, of all the guys, he was the worst of the Oklahoma quarterbacks, right, that Lincoln Riley had. And that's still not saying bad, but he wasn't.
You get that out.
He wasn't Baker Mayfield,
right.
and he certainly wasn't. Kyler Murray, right? But Jalen Hurts was the transfer in. He wasn't Tua. He had to leave, and here he is in the Super Bowl before any of those guys have even gotten. Well, I mean, Baker got to the AFC Championship, but before any of the other guys.
Yeah, I mean, saying the worst of the Lincoln Riley quarterbacks is like who's the ugliest supermodel. I mean,
yeah.
It's not really a bad group to be a part of. And, he only had the 1 year given his full career at Alabama. But, yeah, I mean, a guy who lost his job at Alabama had to go elsewhere and further prove himself, but won a lot of games in Tuscaloosa, did a lot of great things. Obviously, a terrific college football player, was, up for various awards, and still always seemed to be a little bit overshadowed or not quite convincing as maybe the top star, whether it was in Tuscaloosa or even in Norman to an extent. But, it's amazing to see where, he's now taking his pro career, because, I'm not sure how bright people were on his future in the NFL. Certainly didn't seem as though he was, you mentioned those other guys, they were number 1 draft picks. Jalen Hurts was not that. So, I don't know how many people predicted him to be successful at the next level, and I don't know how many of those people even expected him to be this kind of successful at this level. Certainly, nobody could have predicted it this quickly, for it to all come together like this, to where he's one of the top players in the entire National Football League now and has the Eagles in the Super Bowl. It's been amazing to see Jalen Hurts, but that's just kind of him, right? That he's just always one of those guys that proves people wrong or has that chip on his shoulder because he's not Tua or he's not Kyler or he's not, whoever people want to point to and say, well, he's not quite that. But here's Jalen Hurts again in another huge spot, and he's doing what people didn't expect him to be able to do. And so I tip my cap to him, because that's just kind of been his MO throughout his career. And here he is again, proving people wrong and doing so at a very high level, and been amazing to see how that career arc has come about. But on the flip side, maybe the greatest football player of all time when all is said and done. I'm not there right now by any means. Tom Brady's still a living, breathing football player, and even if we're to hang it up today, he's the GOAT. But Patrick Mahomes is doing things already in his career that are just insane, and he's got a really long way to go, God willing. But he's really still just scratching the surface of what he can be, and it just seems like anytime you think the Chiefs are down and out or Patrick on a bum ankle or whatever he's dealing with is not going to be able to make a play. They always seem to be able to make a play, or he makes a play. Somehow or another, Travis Kelce's always open, or, Patrick's making some insane throw to get him open. It's almost unstoppable. And the Chiefs are, a lot of fun to watch. But, man, I just hated that game got so marred by penalties down the stretch. I just felt that got ridiculous. And it, it's another one of those games where I'm not tinfoil hat guy. I'm not everything is rigged guy. But, man, you're just like, this is a spot at the Super Bowl, and we get down to the last few minutes, and everything's suddenly a penalty, and everything's suddenly a huge call. And, I know that every call is huge when you're down to the nitty-gritty in a close game like that. But when you had one after the other, and not even all of them were the right calls, it's just like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, why is this all of a sudden getting so muddy and bogged down, and there's controversy, and I hated that. I hated that game came down to a lot of that there at the very end, because it ruins what is otherwise a really just good game. And that drives me nuts, but the Chiefs were the better team. They were on Joe Burrow's butt all day long. He was just
from
constantly,
the first time he went back to
he's
throw.
just constantly feeling pressure, and so I give Chris Jones and that Chiefs defense a lot of credit for what they did all day. But, yeah, Mahomes is fantastic. The Chiefs are that pest that we're not going to get rid of probably anytime soon. We're going to all love them right now. If you haven't already stopped loving them, you will very soon, because they're going to get very annoying, just like the Patriots and Tom Brady, I feel like. But, yeah, it's going to be a great game. Awesome that you got 2 Texas quarterbacks, 2 Big 12 guys, etc. Looking forward to it.
A half Big 12, half SEC when it comes to Jalen Hurts in many ways. Now, the officiating, Paxton's all over it. The last call was the right call. I don't think, if you are anyone that thinks that should not have been not roughing the quarterback or passer, a late hit, then we can't agree. But I've always been, and a lot of people know, and most of you know, when it comes to like going down the rabbit hole of holding calls or whatever, that it just, to me, you could do that every game. But yeah, what bothered me the most is there's too many times the picture on the screen was of a call or a meeting, and everyone can debate that for as long as they want. For Osai, I hate it for him, trying to hustle to make a play. Mahomes, first time he really took off and ran, because he used to be able to do it all the time, can't with the ankle. Speaking of which, one of the guys has been training him since he was young, back when Craig did his high school games on the radio. Bobby Stroop from APEC will be on with us today to talk about Patrick Mahomes. And we've told the story about him. Everyone knows the story, but just about what he did and what he's done here recently. And then his father, Pat Mahomes, former Major League pitcher, will join us today as well at 5 o'clock. But, yeah, my problem is when there are so many calls. Here's my only thing about the officiating. I'm never really complaining too much about a call. But I will complain about the fact that the game is over-modulated officiated.
Well,
at any level.
I think that a lot of the viewing public feels like this is all just happening now. But I think that it's more of a systemic issue that goes back maybe 20 years or so. The amount of officials at the lower levels that do high school games and every sport. Look, basketball officiating's too overmodulated. We talk about that all the time. Umpiring has gotten kind of weird. The people who are umpiring little league games and calling high school football games and doing all those things, that number is dwindling. Every year in Texas, Smokey, different officiating groups reach out to you through your website, Smokey.com, and say, hey, can you put this out that we're recruiting? It's not great money or anything, but it's a nice little side gig if you want it and you love football and want to be involved. But because parents are really hard to deal with, and sometimes coaches are really hard to deal with.
Heck, sometimes those playing the game, even at a smaller level, younger level. Yeah.
You have a whole, a generation of officials that there is not as much talent coming up through the ranks. And so they've responded to that by kind of changing things up and over officiating, relying on technology more. It's just now opening up to women in men's sports in the last few years, which is, they kind of had this Catholic Church view of it, like, only men can be priests, only men can referee men's games. Well, look, you can't complain when you don't have enough people. You got to start, opening up and changing the rules a little bit so that people can get in and officiate these games, because you need bodies, people doing it with expertise. So it's a long-standing issue, and now I think it's to a point at the NFL level where a lot of teams are complaining, not necessarily about this particular call or that particular call, but the way that games are handled overall.
Yeah, it's not that if it's pass interference or not. And some, like I saw where the NBA released this, my God, the NBA officials, the referees actually released a statement saying that it was gut-wrenching that someone missed a call late in the game on LeBron James trying to tie the game up against. Gut-wrenching? LeBron? Was it a foul? Yeah, there was contact, but gut-wrenching? Would we do that if it was Patrick Beverly or Dinwiddie?
Patrick Beverly did grab that guy's camera.
He did. But I thought, I just feel like sometimes. But, yeah, it was over-modulated, Paxton. I'll agree with you on that. But as far as specific, like I know a lot of people are concerned about the third down play when it looked like Cincinnati stopped Kansas City, and they did, but they went to an overhead shot. The official down the sideline was blowing his whistle. You couldn't hear it if you were at the stadium. You probably couldn't hear it if you were right next to him. I didn't know until the play had been run, I was like, huh. But then they showed the overhead view, and in fact, the official was running in, waving his arms, blowing the whistle, which did no good because of the fact that it was just so packed and so loud. I'll celebrate the teams that won, Kansas City and also Philadelphia. San Francisco was a hell of a run despite the quarterback issues, and including in that game early with Purdy. And then, of course, you look at Cincinnati. I thought they were going to win the game. When they had the ball with a minute left, I thought they were going to go down and kick a field goal, win the game, and it did not work out. But a lot of you can talk about it, and we will read a lot of it if we possibly can throughout the show today. Now, Big 12 basketball.